coming back to that animistic dreaming view, you can dream with your womb. That's what I teach, is to dream from the womb space as an oracular center. The same way you have the chakras, your womb space is its own energetic center. It's really just alchemizing. Using your womb to alchemize your dreams and birth them into being, into the physical realm.
Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, J.N. Behringer, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kaylee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. I am so excited for our guest. Her name is Stella Porta, the Star Portal. Oh my goodness. And she's going to be talking to us about dream work. You guys, when I found her on Instagram, I was instantly in love. I saw her post all about the Melissa, which are an ancient group of priestesses. And I just couldn't get enough of her stuff. I started looking at her content, and then I was super nosy, and I was like, hey, will you just come on our podcast and talk about all this stuff? And she was so kind to me and said that she would come. So I'm going to introduce you to her a little bit so you know Stella. So Stella is a natural bee tender, visual alchemist, and oracular guide. She weaves honeybee wisdom, womb alchemy, and ancient lore with sacred dream work. Through her work at Honey Womb, her mission is to awaken lineages of the Great Mother, inviting others to reclaim the mysteries of the feminine. She also offers sacred symmetry with her husband, devoted to guiding hearts toward harmonious unions through the wisdom of the bees. Oh my gosh, that gives me chills. Okay, Stella, say hi.
Hi, Julie, and thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I'm feeling a little shy about that. I feel just so honored that you found me. I love that the digital world really does weave us together in its own way. And weaving is such a big theme in my life that I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit.
I love that. Well, don't feel shy. This was totally meant to be. I just felt so much alignment. And I actually, just so you know, I actually don't always reach out to people like that, like people I don't know. I don't often do that. So, I mean, it speaks a lot to your work. And I just want to let's talk about dream work. What is dream work and what led you to start doing this honey womb kind of work?
That's a pretty loaded question. And it definitely unfolded not in linear time. It unfolded pretty much in a spiral or in a circle where past, present, and future kind of converged all at once, especially when I go back and look at my dream journal, which I've kept one for years. It's amazing to find the threads that weave together to bring you to the moment that you're at now. So for me, my entire life, I've always been a dreamer. I mean, I think we all have, but I do know many people don't remember their dreams. But I've always been a very vivid dreamer, a classic dreamer, a prophetic dreamer at times, very visual, very visceral dreamer. I started finding that at certain moments, I would dream of things that also didn't happen yet or were going to happen. And it was then I really started to pay attention to my dreams and what they were trying to tell me. So the way that I view dream work is that your body is a temple. And we come at it from a very grounded experience. I know in our modern culture, many of us dream as a way of escaping ordinary reality, but the way that I see dreams and the way that I teach and guide others is to come back to ourselves fully through our dream world. Because in many philosophies and cosmologies, everything begins in the ethereal realm first. It's like when you take a thought. It begins in the realm of thought, in the realm of dreams, and then it becomes manifest into the physical. So it always begins first. It's like everything that was created in our society was first thought of by somebody else. Every single thing, the chair you're sitting on, the mic you're using, the computer we're using to have this conversation from across the world, that was all created in someone's thought, in someone's dreams. And I know there were certain people as well that throughout history that used their dreams. I think Nikola Tesla was one of them, where he would dream something first and then he would create it. So for me, dreams were always just this really powerful experience. And then I started looking into dream work as our own personal oracles. I'm very much a big believer of self sovereignty and not needing to rely on anybody else to guide you in your life and your path. Of course, we can learn from each other. I think of learning as the bees have taught me, where we each go out into the world and we gather nectar from flowers, which is our personal experiences and our thoughts and our dreams. And then we bring it back to the hive, to the community, and we nourish the whole with it. But no honey is better than the other. No nectar means more than the other. It's just bringing our wisdoms and our experiences and our knowledge into the hive of our consciousness, of our collective consciousness. So I think everybody's experiences are valid. So many of us were taught not to rely on our dreams. Even science is just catching up, to be honest. They still don't really understand why we dream. I mean, even animals dream. And the way that I teach as well is to dream with our environment as well and aspects of the land. You can dream with anything, because the way I view dreaming and the way it's always presented itself to me, I didn't know it at the time until a few years ago when I delved into this a little bit more, but it's animistic dreaming. So dreaming through the lens that everything is alive and imbued with consciousness. And so we can dream with anything. We can dream with the land we live on. We can dream with the animals. We can dream with the bees. We can dream with the Melissa priestesses. We can dream with our womb space. That is I actually focus more on using the womb as an oracular center. And we can also dream with, let's say, the land we want to live on. Where do I want to move? What place is calling me in the world? When you really start to engage with the world in this way, you just get so much magic. You start to really become the weaver of your reality. And that's really my goal and my focus, is to teach others and guide others. But I'm also a student. I want to make that very clear. I don't position myself in a level of authority. It's just me sharing from my experiences and what has worked, and just teaching others to understand their own dream language. I think that's the most important thing. You'll never find me telling you to go and buy a dream dictionary. I don't believe in those. I believe that your soul, your essence, your energy has its own language, and the world will speak to you through that language. I mean, really, energy is the language of the universe. So once you begin to learn that energy and once you begin to understand it, everything can speak to you. And what it says to you will be completely different from what it says to me. I could have a dream about a snake and it'll mean something different to me than it will to you. Does that make sense?
Totally. That was so beautiful and so well articulated. You did say a few things that I think we'll probably need to help people understand a little bit deeper on. And so the first thing, I'm just going to reiterate what you said about animism and animistic dreaming. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay. And from my understanding, that is realizing like everything has importance, everything is alive and breathing, like everything is part of our consciousness. And you kind of used it in this term of like you can dream with things. You can dream with the Melissa priestesses. You can dream with your womb. So will you explain a little bit deeper on that animistic dreaming and what that means, like to dream with something?
That is a very good question. And so the way that we approach animistic dreaming, there's 3 tenets of dream work, or I like to call them 3 threads, because obviously the weaving metaphor is very strong and we can get into that a little bit later. But the first is breath, the second is will and intention, and the third is imagination. So these are the 3 threads that we use to enter the dreamscape and bring those insights back into our waking reality. So when we look at it through the lens of animism, where everything is alive and imbued with consciousness, we realize that we are part of this great cosmic web. In ancient lineages and priestesses and oracles teachings, we would call this the dream weave or the dream net. And this is a net that wraps around the entire cosmos and links us all together. All non-human and non-human beings alike in this dreaming web. And the bees, they are tenders to that web. So when we say that we're going to dream with something, it's exactly as you said it. You said that perfectly. It's not to dream necessarily about something. It's to dream with it. You're dreaming with the spirit of that collective. A lot of animals have soul group consciousness. So with the bees, for example, they're not a singular organism. They are a superorganism. They are a single entity made up of multiple beings. So, for example, which is what I teach, is when you dream with an ally, such as the bees, you're not really dreaming about them, you're dreaming with them. So you're allowing them to flavor your. So, for example, the dreams are the substance, and let's say the bees, or what you're dreaming with, is the medium through which you're dreaming. Does that make sense? So it's almost like the bees are the herbs that you would put in the tea, and the water are is the dreams. So it's like they flavor your dreams, but it's not necessarily about dreaming with them. Did that answer your question? Or do you want
I
me to
think
expand on it a
so.
little bit more?
No, I think so. So to recap on what you're saying is because I think about this in terms of because I'm an herbalist, right? So when I use plants or I work with them, right? Like lots of people will say like what do you use or what do you put in this? But oftentimes I like to say like I work with the herbs as like my ally, right? They're my allies. They're not just doing something for me. We work together. So what it sounds like is it's not about the bees being in your dream. It's about the essence, working with the essence of the bee to have the dream. Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly it. And so coming back to that animistic dreaming view, you can dream with your womb. That's what I teach, is to dream from the womb space as an oracular center. The same way you have the chakras, your womb space is its own energetic center. In the path that I walk, where the bee and the serpent are intertwined, this is how I was taught. This is how I learned. And it was learning to dream from the womb space as an oracular center, the same way the priestesses of Delphi did, which were also known as Melissa. We can get into that a little bit after. But it's really just alchemizing. Using your womb to alchemize your dreams and birth them into being, into the physical realm. That's what it is.
I love that. I love that birthing into the physical realm. It totally gave me chills. Like listening to you just gave me chills. I would like to clear up because I know there are people who are listening who are like, okay, oracular, what does that mean? And what I gather is oracular is like oracle. It's like future dreaming. How would you describe it?
I love the way you said that. But for me, oracular is also the way that I picture time, where it's a circle, it's a spiral. So you're able to dip your foot into the ocean of time, and it's in a way that you can access the past, the present, and the future. So with oracular dreams and that language and that nomenclature itself, I wouldn't just use it to speak of the future. I would use it to actually dip into time itself. Because a lot of the times, especially with dreams, they never unfold linearly. Linearly. That was a little bit of a mouthful. They never really unfold in linear time. They're kind of all over the place. You could have a dream now, and then 10 months from now, it'll make sense, you know? So I also want to say, too, that even the word oracle comes from the Latin word orare, which means to speak. Oracles in the ancient days weren't just about predicting the future. It was the act of speaking, spelling, weaving spells. Even the word weave comes from the root word texere, which means to weave. Do you know what I mean? Which means textile, as in fabric and written words. Everything, like women's spirituality, is linked a lot of the times etymologically to our ancient lineages of priestesses and oracles. I mean, that's really how we're tracing her story. I don't like saying history. I like focusing on her story. It's our story, the story of women through time, because women's history was often erased or left out of written records or not told truthfully. So we're trying to follow these threads on, okay, what is our true herstory? Especially because with the goddess, she predates man-made patriarchal religions by thousands of years. If you look at any work by Maria Gimbutas, she found so much anthropological evidence of the goddess existing long before these man-made religions were created. And not to disparage religion at all, but I do believe that religion was made by man for man. And unfortunately, it left the goddess out of it, the other half of the Godhead. And when we leave that other half out, that means that we're believing in something in its wholeness, in its entirety. We're only getting half the story. And women are the other half of that story. So the way that I teach dream work and the way that I feel my mission is to awaken the lineages of the Great Mother is not to detract from the masculine aspects of spirituality, but it's to bridge them so that we're not standing in front or behind one another, but beside each other. It's about walking the world together, side by side. There's no hierarchy. It's a circle.
Completely. Totally on the same page. We actually did an entire episode on the hidden goddess of the Bible, finding where she actually does show up in those texts. I'm sure you've heard of Margaret Barker and other theologians and historians who talk about this. So if anyone hasn't listened to that episode, I can't remember what it is, but it's with David Butler, who's done so much work on this. And it's called The Hidden Goddess of the Bible, where we break down so much of this, which is beautiful. Thank you for bringing that up. And we also talk so much here about, we want to stand side by side, right? We want this to be a circle. We're not trying to put anybody down to put ourselves up. And so I love that you brought that up. A couple things I also wanted to touch on of what you said, right? For people listening, and going back to this idea of oracle and speaking, right, is an orator, right? Like someone who's an orator is someone who speaks and talks. And that is like part of being a prophet, or having the gift of prophecy is being able to give a message. So I think that's really beautiful, because dreams and everything you're talking about is like that message coming through you, and like dreaming to gain a message. And also when you were talking about textile and that being related to words, right? We still say text today. Look at the text. And so it's the same kind of thing that we're weaving together, just to like sew those up right there, to like put a knot in those that you were saying, because I think it's so beautiful. I love everything that you're doing. So let's touch on, since you teased us so much about the Melissa and the bee and the serpent and dreaming with those things, where do the Melissa, these ancient priestesses, play into this? How did you get connected to that? Why are they important? What is this whole thing about bees and serpents? How are they connected? Can we get into the...
Of course you can. My favorite subject to talk about. I dedicate an entire class in my live courses just to tracing the lineages of nectar. That's what I call it. And I've been doing this for the past few years, just going back and trying to find anthropological evidence, written evidence of this lineage of what I call nectar, where these goddesses were connected to the bee. And the bee was one of the first manifestations of the goddess herself. And that's how she was personified. So in the beginning, the Greeks believed that we had Gaia, which then we now know as Gaia. And she was the mother, the eldest of all beings. And Gaia gave birth to Python, some say parthenogenetically, which is virgin birth, to this great serpentess, she-dragon. And she was also known as Delphine. So Python was known as Python and as Delphine. And they said that Gaia was the first oracle of the whole world, with Python being the first oracle of Delphi. There are many different variations, and that's the thing with history, is that we'll really never truly know. But they all have the same common thread. So Python would give birth to the Pythia, and the Pythia were the oracles of Delphi, and Pythia itself means of the Python. So these were the serpent priestesses. And what's really amazing is that Pindar, who was a poet of the time, also referred to the oracular speech of the Pythia as the Delphic bee. So Pythia was also a Melissa. Now, Melissa, there are many different origin stories to the Melissa. Melissa means bee in Greek, and the priestesses were of the bees. So part of the history of that, some of the myths, one of the creation stories was that the Melissa came from the Meliads, who were bee nymphs. And there's so many different versions of that story that we could talk about. But essentially, they believed that bees were the souls of reincarnated priestesses. That was another belief of that time. And with Python, you would have the Pythia or the Melissa. We can use them a little bit interchangeably because they were known as both Pythia and Melissa. Right now, I guess maybe I'll just focus on Pythia so it doesn't get too confusing. So the Pythia would sit in the Aditon, which was the underground chamber of the Delphic temple, and she would hold in one hand a laurel branch and in the other a bowl of water. So these two things were very sacred to the Pythia. And she would sit on this tripod and she would have her legs open, and she would literally breathe the pneuma of the earth, the rising vapors, into her womb, and she would channel from the womb space, and then it would come out oracular to speak out of her mouth. I would argue that she was breathing in the breath of the Python who lived beneath the Delphic temple, the serpentess, Gaia's daughter. But she would do this for 1,500 years, for thousands of years. Well, not thousands, but 1,500 years. That's a really long time for an oracle to be in a position of power. And unfortunately, what happened was the overthrow of the goddess, which is a very common story in our history. Apollo came in and he slayed the Python, the daughter of the earth, and he took over the Delphic temple. The Delphic temple now belonged to him. All the priestesses, if you actually look at a lot of records written by men about the Delphic temple, usually they're Apollo's priestesses. They no longer belong to Gaia. They belong to Apollo, right? And Apollo is the sun god of the time. So you have this triumphant young god that comes in and overthrows the goddess and kills the serpent. Where have we heard that before? The serpent python becomes demonized and vilified. And she's something that needs to be slaughtered in order for the young god to take power. So that's what he does. And then the priestesses now become indebted to Apollo. They're now the priestesses of Apollo. But one of the stories that I really, really love is that the python never truly died. She just went and she buried herself into the earth under the Omphalo stone. And the Omphalo stone was this, well, there's a bunch of different stories, but they say originally it was a meteorite that came from the sky. And it was shaped like a beehive with what looked like a net of bees around it, which is the dream weave, kind of what I spoke of earlier in bee shamanism. And one of the stories is that Python went underneath the stone and stayed there, bringing prophecy through the bees. The bees were her protector on top, and she was still giving prophecy to the priestesses. So after all of this, the temples, unfortunately, especially with Christianity and the emperors of the time, they shut down the temple, and the temple was no more. And unfortunately, a lot of this herstory was rewritten or omitted from historical records. But what's really beautiful is that some of it did exist. If we follow the etymology of certain words, we can start tracing it back and really putting the pieces and the threads together into a tapestry of understanding. Was there anything else you wanted to know?
Well, there's so much. I'm into the story now. I'm here. She's underneath this wonderful meteorite that's saving her. The bees are saving her. A couple clarifying questions and just kind of recapping some of this. So the Pythia and the Melissa are related. They're both groups of priestesses. Melissa means bee, Pythia is python, and both of them come from this idea of Gaia birthing their daughter. Because before you said that Melissa or the bee can just be, we talk about here, right? The bee is really a big representation of the feminine, the goddess, and things like that. But was Gaia represented by the bee?
I believe so. When I started tracing the lineages of nectar back to the serpent goddess, actually Sumerian culture, which was Namu, which was one of the dragon mothers, the serpent mothers of creation, the thread led to the python, to the bee. And even, the bee goddess has so many names. She was Ishtar, Inanna, Artemis, Rhea, Demeter, Persephone, Cybele, which was a very ancient goddess that they actually believed the Omphalo stone was an aspect of Cybele, the goddess, that Cybele came from a meteorite. That's a whole other story. But the goddess, to me, was really first personified. Well, I can't even say that because, like I said earlier, history and herstory is such a funny thing where we're really relying on other people's speculation as well, other people's findings. We're trying to carbon date things back. It's hard to know which came first, but I can say that the bee and the serpent were always intertwined. Like, they are two of the oldest feminine symbols of our human story. And they're connected in so many ways, I think, because of this feminine wisdom that they both embody and they personify. They both emerge from the ground in spring. They both basically live in the womb of the earth. Snakes live in the womb of the earth. The bees live in the womb of the earth. Sometimes they're bees that are living underground in the earth and also in the heart of a tree, or the womb of a tree, we could say. So both of these animal allies are really, really entwined with the womb. And whenever I talk about the womb, I'm talking about the great womb, the cosmic womb, our wombs as human beings, the womb of the earth. It's all really connected.
Thank you so much for saying that. It makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to make sure that I was kind of getting this intertwining correct. And so the story seems that, right, there were these priestesses, and the big part of it is that they are using the power of the womb to orate, to be oracles, basically. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. So at a place like Delphi, the title Melissa was not only a marker of priestesshood, but also a marker of the divinity of women descended from nymphs. I think I kind of mentioned that briefly in the beginning. So nymphs, what are nymphs? Like, they are those who are born of human form and the gods, the goddesses, the wilderness itself, the earth herself. So in the old stories, it was the Melissa nymphs who actually saved Zeus, who hid him away in their cave and raised him on honey. There were also bee nymphs who are said to be the original teachers of prophecy at Delphi. I mean, like I said, there's so many different originators of priestesshood at Delphi. But these ones were described in a Homeric hymn to Hermes as holy ones, sisters three virgins gifted with wings. Their heads are besprinkled with white meal, and they dwell under the ridge of Parnassus, which is where Delphi was located. So when we really dissect that quote, the meal is pollen. So these nymphs are pollen crowned. They're teachers of divination. And then they were thought to fly down, offering teachings and prophecy and feeding only on honeycomb and bringing oracles and prophecies to pass. So that's just a little bit something to think about. And in another story, it said that the first Melissa were the Meliads. I think I mentioned that earlier. And the single term of that is Melia, which is really close to Melissa, right? It's the Mel, M-E-L, links to the word for honey. So these were nymphs who inhabited the Melissa plant and the ash tree. They were born in a primordial moment of feminine power when Gaia, who was tired of constantly being impregnated, called upon her son Kronos to free her from this burden. So as Kronos castrates his father, which was Uranus, drops of blood spill onto the earth and the Meliads are birthed into being. And it's actually important to note that in this same tumultuous act, Aphrodite, who we all know as the goddess of love and beauty, was also born from the sea's frothy waves as his severed phallus, Uranus's, met the water. So these tales, although they seem different, they actually share a common thread. The birth of divine beings from the blood of a fallen god, which I really think is the storyline a lot of people use in movies and books. But here we see the duality of the divine again, right? There's a split between land and sea, between Aphrodite's watery birth and the Meliad's earthly emergence. And the goddess rules over the elements of earth and water if we look at the earth herself. Each domain really resonates her power. And then at the heart of this trinity stands the Melissa. So you've got kind of like a pyramid, I guess. And things always come in threes, right? That seems to be the magical number, especially in a lot of cosmologies. So we have this trinity, and at the heart of it stands Melissa. And she's the bee. She represents the element of air. She is the priestess and mediatrix of liminal spaces, like dreams, who bridges these realms. And Meliads are also dual nature spirits. So in other words, the ash trees, which are nymphs who inhabited the Melissa plant in the ash tree, have more than one consciousness. So the Meliads share the ash tree consciousness with water spirits called the Nereids. And at this time, these cosmologies and these creation stories really helped birth this idea of the Melissa and the bee priestess and the goddess. I mean, we have the bee as a goddess as early as Egyptian cosmology with the goddess Neith, who was the goddess of weaving, fate, hunting, war. And you'll notice that with a lot of bee goddesses, they're also goddesses of war. So we have this duality between the honey and the sting.
So I want to talk about tying this back to dreams and dream work. So I'll summarize kind of what I'm hearing is all of these different tales, because we talk a lot about myth here and how myth is, you want to look under it to see where the threads are and what's coming to us. So all of these different myths about Gaia, Kronos, the takeover of the temple by Apollo, about the nymphs and from the ash and the water, all of these pieces are trying to help us understand and paint a picture of what the feminine looks like and what the job of the Melissa was. Is that right? And so now we can take that and we can, if we are, using the Melissa as a template, these priestesses as a template, we can then use them to dream with them, right? They have something to do with dreams, and now we're going to tie them together with how they fit into dream work and the work that you do. So go right ahead if you wanted to tie that together. How did the Melissa, tie into the dream work? Why are bees important for dreaming? And of course, the serpent is in there as well.
Yes. Okay. You might have to, if I miss anything, please let me know and remind me. There's one thing I forgot to mention. The word Delphi itself comes from the word Delphus, meaning womb. Delphi itself was a womb. So these were priestesses of the womb in the place of the womb. That's powerful, right? Like there was a lot of wombic energy here. And so Melissa is she who channels from beneath her legs. Because remember, the rising pneuma comes up into her womb space and then she speaks. So she's channeling not through the crown, which is how we're usually taught. She's channeling from the earth. She's descending in order to ascend, which is one of the main teachings of the bee and the serpent. Going into the earth, they descend into the earth, especially around, certain seasonal times, especially in the northern hemisphere where we have the 4 seasons. And during this time, the bees will descend after summer, the fall. As autumn comes along, they'll go into the earth, same as the snakes. You won't see them until spring emerges again. So there's this really strong energy of ascent and descent. And usually we're taught that we need to ascend. We're constantly needing to ascend. But these creatures teach us to descend first, descend into the womb of the earth, the womb of the cosmos, your own cosmic womb. Then you can ascend, because it's in this sacred dark, this darkness, that life emerges from, that life is birthed through our own beings, through the earth around us, and through the cosmos. And when it comes to dreaming, we are tapping into the sacred dark. A lot of people, you'd be surprised to learn, are scared of dreaming. They're still scared of the dark. Darkness scares them because of certain connotations, that are usually religious that get attached to this word. But darkness itself is sacred because it is that place where it's the well of creation. It's the cauldron of life. This is where, even in the cosmos, things are birthed. So we use our wombs, this dark, sacred space, as an entry point into those realms, into the realms of dreaming, into the realms of the ether, into the realms of the cosmos. And like I said earlier, it's taking these dreams, and what I call them is our oracles of the night. That's what I call them. And then we take our oracles of the night and we bring them and synchronize them with our oracles of the day, which are, to me, are synchronicities, are signs that appear, right? So it's like learning to weave these together into messages for ourselves that guide our path. So whenever someone has a question, for me, and they'll ask, what should I do? Should I take this job? Should I move here? My answer is always to dream on it, and what you do, this is called intentional dreaming. So we are working with that energy and we're asking that energy to guide us. And it's not, I want to make this clear, it's not in a possessive way. We're not asking anything to possess us. We're not asking to channel even anything. We are just connecting into the dream weave, into the dream net that surrounds the earth and the cosmos. And it's exactly like I said, where Melissa is she who speaks from between her legs. So we are channeling from the earth and we're bringing that up into our system, and then we're allowing ourselves to grow. Kind of like if you think a rose, right? A flower, it starts from the ground and it comes up and it births and it opens, it unfurls, it releases its fragrance into the world, right? It's unique nectar, we could say. And so the bees and the serpents in many cosmologies were considered psychopomps, which means that they were mediators between life and death. So I call bees midwives of the souls. They have one of the shortest reincarnation cycles. Bees usually, if they have the full span of their life, live about 45 days, unless they're for the winter. In the winter, they can live a little bit longer. They can live up to 6 months. But usually the bee's life is about 45 days, if it lasts an entire timeline. So they have one of the shortest reincarnation cycles. So bees It really comes from this belief where the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians would bury a bull skull into the earth, and when the spring came, bees would emerge from that skull. Truthfully, it sounds more like wasps to me because bees wouldn't take up a home or create a home in a skull. That's just not what they would do. But it's the symbolism of and the mythic connection of the buried feminine issuing forth new life. That's where the symbolism comes from. And it's very connected to the Pleiades. The seven sisters were also known as the seven nymphs or the seven bees, which was actually Pliny the Elder actually referred to the constellation as a cluster of golden bees. So when we look at the seven sisters, the Pleiades, we're also connecting with the Melissa. They were also nymphs, right? They were also playmates of Artemis. And Artemis was actually called the queen bee. And she's also linked to the Eleusinian mysteries, and her priestesses were called Melissa. Demeter's priestesses were called Melissa. There's a whole, honestly, this would take hours for me to go through. And even in my 3-hour class, it's not enough. I can never cover it all. There's just so much. But Artemis was also known as the queen bee. And so she's also connected to the Pleiades. They're her playmates. And with the heliacal rising of the Pleiades back in their times, in the ancient times, that's when the bees would issue forth. So there was this connection between the celestial movements and the birth and life reemerging from the bees. And like I think I might have said this earlier, but the serpent and the bee also come out at the same time. So they are linked to the cycles of Gaia, to the earth at the same time. They understand something that we as humans have forgotten. They know how to live in harmony with the earth. The earth is a sentient being with consciousness, right? The consciousness in everything. And bees are also arboreal beings, which means that they usually, if left feral and not domesticated, they will live in the heart of a tree or the womb of the earth, like a cave, especially a cave, which I believe, to me, caves represent the womb of the earth. So the bee and the serpent have been connected through a very long time. So when we dream with them, we're dreaming with this energy of being able to pass between realms. They are the guardians of our dreams. So there's a lot of different powerful imagery that I use in my courses using the hexagon. The hexagon is one of the most powerful shapes and structures in nature. It uses the least amount of materials but can hold the most weight. That's incredible to me. It's hollow, right? Think about it. A hexagon is hollow, but it can hold the most weight. And the bees are born just knowing this design. This is why they are part of a hive consciousness. They're part of something bigger because they're born already knowing what they need to do, because they see the hexagon in everything. In the clay soil, in the molecular level of the silica, in the nectar of a flower, they can see the hexagon. So the bee builds what it sees. It builds in hexagons. That's how the bee sees their world. And so for us, we're dreaming within the hexagon, a place of protection, a place of healing, a place of sanctuary. So we invite the bees in to be the guardians of our dreams, because like I said, they have that duality of both sweetness, honey, and sting. They can sting if they need to protect their hive, and they will. Female bees, I don't like calling them workers. I prefer Jacqueline Freeman's terminology where she calls them maidens. I prefer that much better. So it just seems so colonized when we refer to everything as, in capitalist, as workers. So the maidens, there's certain maidens that have the specific role of guard bee at the entrance of a hive. And they will only sting to protect their hive. So if you get stung, it's because they thought they were in danger or they're protecting something, whether it's themselves or each other. So there's that double nature, the dual nature of the goddess, right? And so we invite the bees to also seed our dreams, bringing this honey, this sweetness, this nourishment, this abundance. We can dream with bees for all these things, for prosperity. I mean, they are master teachers of abundance. They are master alchemists. They use the elements, earth, air, wind, fire, and they create something, It's pretty amazing. You have the nectar of a flower, which is water. Then you have the earth itself, which is earth, flowers, earth. And you have ether too, because the sun is a star and they're solar feminine beings, right? And nectar is literally liquid sunlight. And then you have air because they fly. So they use all the elements to create their work and to really bring abundance to this planet, because without bees, It's true. We wouldn't be able to exist. Rudolf Steiner has so many beautiful essays on that and the importance of bees, not just from a spiritual perspective, but from an ecological perspective. The bees are so important. And I think it's because they are this manifestation, this embodiment of the Great Mother. They are trying to teach us something. I think that as much as we are worried about bees, they are allowing certain things to happen because they're trying to teach us how to be better. They're trying to teach us how to live in harmony with the land, with ourselves. They show us that our bodies are alchemists. There are vessels, which is why I dream from the womb. The same way that a bee can take liquid sunlight nectar, ingest it, alchemize it in her belly, right? In her stomach. We can pretend that's the womb space, right? And then basically birth it, regurgitate it, and it creates something completely different. It creates sustenance, nourishment, medicine, right? So this is what we're doing with our dreams. Our body is the temple. It is the dreaming temple, the divine conduit, the alchemist. Like the bees are the best example to me of divine alchemy, where they take something and they turn it into what they need. So that's what we're doing with our dreams, which is why our bodies are so important. And which is why I think you asked me this earlier. I don't think I actually answered it, but this is why I was drawn to them, Melissa, because it was a totally different way of receiving divine insight and intuition. Instead of expecting it to come from the sky, it's coming from the earth. It's coming up through my womb, and then I'm able to speak it. So that's what really drew me to that. And the bees are just such masters of that because they teach us how to use our bodies to literally create the foundation of our world. And that is how I use dreams. Your body is going to help you create the foundation of the world around you. If we can dream, I know this sounds very cliche, but if we can dream it, we can do it.
Hey friends, it's Jayan here. If you have been feeling really stressed out about the world lately, you are not alone. There's been enough crazy and fear flying around the internet that even I've been knocked off my rocker sometimes. But it's times like these that I'm really grateful for the tools I have to regulate my nervous system. I developed these tools for myself when I was going through the thick of it. My babies were young and I had a ton of repressed anger. And these tools help me through other stressful times, including negotiating my own divorce, having difficult money conversations, and of course, the whole COVID experience. And I've put all these tools in a method I call the Authentic Self-Care Method. This is different than other self-care programs because it is a framework for you to find your special sauce when it comes to self-care. And let me tell you a secret. Step 1 is not take a bath, get a haircut, or go to the gym. Step 1 is regulate your nervous system. And that's exactly what we do inside the 3-in-1 membership. This powerful program includes focused journals and meditations you can do in just a few minutes, like the fight or flight session, the hippocampus session, which rewrites your ability to see new possibilities, and the vagus nerve session, which helps you regulate your whole body in a crisis. Using these tools, members have reported feeling more empowered, more expansive, and many experience relief from actual physical pain, all for less than $2 a day. So join the 3-in-1 membership now so you can learn these tools today. The world is not going to become less crazy. The only thing you can control is how you respond to it. The 3-in-1 membership will help you do that, so click the link in the show notes to enroll today.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I could just listen to you forever talking about this and talking about the bees. And I love this idea of the wisdom coming from the ground up, because I think we have so vilified the descent in so many ways, and descending and going downward. We have talked about, if people haven't listened to our episode on the heroine's journey, you can't possibly go on the heroine's journey without a descent. Like, that's how it starts. It starts with descending, and how beautiful that you are taking that wisdom from that descent up through the earth, right? Like that you're using that energy from the earth to come through you, and then you orate it out, or it comes out of you the same way that happens with the bees. So I think that's so beautiful. So I have to ask, how does one dream with one's womb? You touched on a little bit of it, but how do you dream with your womb, from your womb space?
Yeah, I know. I think when it comes to anything oracular, we expect it to be this really profound explanation, but really what the Melissa and the Pythia teach us is that sometimes it doesn't even make sense. Like most of their prophecies, honestly, probably didn't make any sense. It probably sounded a lot like gibberish. Actually, when the priest took over the temple and they recorded the oracles of the priestesses, they did refer to it as that. So I don't really like using that word because I'm not agreeing with them. But to somebody that would expect this really profound answer, really, really articulated well, would probably be really surprised to hear them just start singing a song that didn't make any sense. Speaking in hexameter, a lot of the priestesses also spoke in hexameter, which is a verse of 6, which is also linked to the 6-sided cell of the bee. That number 6 is very powerful in nature. And some of them would use dream oracles. So they would dream on a land, on a sacred spot, and see what would come through their dreams. A lot of temples, dream incubation temples, such as those for the god of Asclepius, who was the god of medicine, and he also had the serpent rod, not to be confused with the caduceus, which has the 2 serpents winding around the rod. But this one with Asclepius, he has a serpent winding around the rod. I wish I had my statue here. It's on my dream altar. I would have showed you. But so his dream incubation temple, as well as Serapis, who was a combination of a few gods, a Greco-Egyptian kind of amalgamation of gods, and priestesses would go to these temples and they would sleep in there. And a lot of the times they would have non-venomous snakes moving along the floor as people slept. And they believed also, because snakes were also considered to be, psychopomps, able to go into the underworld and able to come back up. That's what I think draws people to that descent aspect, where they cycle through ascent and descent and life and death and rebirth, and they're not afraid of the dark. It's like we have to go into the darkness to get that nectar, to get that wisdom, and then come back up and bring it into the light. And so dreaming from the womb space, I think I did, I'm not sure if I touched on this earlier, I might have, but it's really learning how to dream with that sacred dark. So for me, it's doing practices to connect with the womb. There was a practice I learned from my mentor, Ariella Daly, called womb sipping. And a practice you can do to start tuning into the womb space and using it as an oracular center is to sit on the, you can do it inside, but it does add a little bit of extra magic to sit on the land itself. And what you would do is you'd sit comfortably and you'd close your eyes and you would picture the head of a bee in your womb space. And a bee, when she sips nectar, she has it's a tongue, but it's called a proboscis. And what you would do is you would basically visualize the bee in your womb and the proboscis coming out, where your cervix is, and drawing up the oracles and the nectar from the unseen, from the land, from the earth herself. So that's a practice that you can do to start to cultivate before dream time. A lot of the times not a lot of the times, in all of my courses, I provide a dreaming tree meditation where we connect with the hive by becoming a tree and a bee. So you're becoming the object and the subject simultaneously, which is a skill that is essential to dream work. And you'll find actually in a lot of your dreams, you do play both the object and the subject at the same time, the subject and the subject and the witness at the same time. And so when we're dreaming from the womb space, we're not dreaming with our minds. We're not dreaming with our heads. We're dreaming with our body. So really, the womb space is synonymous with the body. You're using your body as the bridge between realms, able to travel into the ethers while you sleep, into the astral, but also able to travel among the physical world. So your body really is the portal. It's the stargate. And that's what we use our womb as, because the hive itself is a womb. So scientists have likened the hive to a mammalian womb. And that's why I really like dreaming with bees, is because we are actually dreaming with the womb. So by connecting into their womb, we're also connecting in with our own. So I like to picture a hive within my womb space. I have a hive, a cave within my womb. And when I go to bed, that's what I visualize. There's bees, not in an uncomfortable way, but there's bees, in there. It's this nectary, this hive of honey just sitting in me, waiting to be tasted, right? It's like all this knowledge, all this wisdom is in my womb. And really, I would just recommend as well for women to just take time to, when you have a few moments, to close your eyes and just put your hands on your womb space and ask your womb what it wants to show you. That's what I'll ask before bedtime. Sometimes I will tune into my womb space and say, show me what you want to show me tonight. Show me in my dreams. And like I said, sometimes the answers are not very literal. Our dream language is very symbolic. So it's important, when we ask to dream with bees, if we don't dream of bees, to not get discouraged if they're not showing up, because there's messages, there's hidden messages, there's fragments, there's threads that you can follow. And it's really important to write everything down. That's what I would say. I call my dream journal my book of mirrors, because it's a form of scrying. Instead of looking into water or a medium, we're using our subconscious mind. That's what we're tuning into. That's what we're scrying from. So I would recommend, first and foremost, to start dreaming from the womb space, and with bees if you want, or with the land, with any ally, really, any energy, is to get a dream journal to record your oracles of the night. That's my number one tip. Please do that. Get a dream journal, even if it's digital. Honestly, some people prefer to voice record and then they can transcribe it. That works too, but just have a written record. It comes back to that word texere, to weave, right? Like, we just want a written record of our weavings so we can refer to them and we can start putting the threads together and understanding the direction that lies before us. I mean, I see possibility as this web with infinite amount of paths, and it just depends on which thread we want to follow. And the weavers are so prominent in history. I mean, I talk about that a lot in my classes too, because the bees are weavers. And we think that weaving is just limited to spiders, but in the same way the spider spins silk from her own body, the bee also spins comb. She spins wax from her body too. And what we're doing is we're using our body to spin our realities, to weave them into existence. So the body is the vessel. This is the core of this type of dream work, is understanding that your womb is a nectary that just had all this honey waiting for you. And you just have to learn how to tap in and listen. And honestly, it sounds so simple and it might not happen right away. A lot of the times when you start doing intentional dream work, you have to shift, like your dreaming recalibrates and it shifts. And a lot of times people either get so many dreams all at once and they're starting to remember their dreams, or sometimes they have a dream drought where all of a sudden they can't remember their dreams anymore. And that happens. That's very normal if you start doing this and you find that your dream recall is not very good. It's just your body recalibrating, reshifting. It's okay. You're just trying a different framework. You're just moving into a different way of dreaming, and then it will level out. And it's just really beautiful. The most important thing is to dream with intention. Like I said earlier, one of the 3 threads that are very, very essential and important to the way that I dream anyways is intention. Because when we dream with something, we act as if it is true until it becomes true. It's like, that's what you do. You keep believing it until it becomes true, until that thought becomes reality. And it will. For the bees, myself, the way they came into my life is they were showing up in my dreams. First, it was the spiders, the weavers, and I didn't realize they were connected at the time. And then eventually it was the bees, and they were just always coming into my dreams. I was dreaming about them all the time, and I didn't really understand why, because bees kind of freaked me out. I never wanted to get stung. I was not a honey person either. I didn't understand why I was dreaming of bees. And out of nowhere, this course came up for intentional dreaming with European bee shamanism. Normally, it takes me a really long time to decide to take a course. I don't know about you, but I will list the pros and cons. I'll see, do I have time? Do I not? And I'll make a list, and it'll take a week before I decide. This was the first time within 5 minutes, I clicked it and I was like, I'm doing this. And within days of me signing up to this course, 2 hives arrived on the property I parked my tiny home on, out of nowhere. There was no discussion of it. They just appeared. And it was almost as if the bees were telling me, okay, we're here. You chose to go forward with this. We showed up. You're showing up. We're showing up too. And that's what I love about this work, is that once you say yes to the ceremony, once you say yes to the body of work, it's already working you. And that's exactly what it did for me. And then I started having dreams about deformed bees. And sure enough, when I went to the hive, I found out they were in trouble and they had been neglected and they needed help. So the bees have always spoken to me in dreams. And I think that's why when I found this work, it really called to me, because I never understood how I could explain dream work to people until the bees came into my life. And I found my mentor and she helped me understand that. And it was really amazing. And then now I'm able to dream with many different elements and aspects. I have a course coming up in September, in the fall and autumn, the season of the witch, for dreaming with wolves, women who dream with wolves, because wolves have always shown up in my dreams as well, right? I know. And I was like, as women, we're really called to this wild feminine. I mean, there's a reason why everyone loves that book, Women Who Run with Wolves. So many women have it. I see women post it all the time in their stories, on their pages. And the wolves have been coming to me saying, "Hey, no, we love the bees. We can have them in the background, but we need to show up. We want to guide people through the dream time too." So I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Sign me up for that course. That sounds amazing. I would love that. And I love hearing, because the next piece I would like to put into this is, right, how it connects to our reality, how the dreaming connects. And I think you laid out some beautiful examples that have happened in your, true life. And I know you said before that when you start dreaming this way, dreaming with intention, that then you start seeing the synchronicities, you start seeing things show up. But is there anything else you want to say about bringing this to the physical world, this aspect of dreaming with your womb, putting intention into your dreaming, and how it shows up in your daily life?
That's a great question. It's going to differ between each person. But there's one thing I think I do want to mention. I know there's a lot of hype around manifestation and really just about visualizing. But there's also a second part of that, which involves action and taking action on your dreams. And that is one of the most important things I'll say. If you dream about something and you're finding these threads, take action on them in whatever way feels right for you. And you can also dream about which actions to take as well. So it starts in the ethereal realm, in the thought, and then we bring it into form. But in order to do that, we need to use our bodies physically. We need to go out into the world. So if we're dreaming about something, and I call them my oracles of the night, and then we're looking at the signs, synchronicities, and omens that are appearing in our oracles of the day during our waking reality, you'll find that a lot of the times when you dream about something, if you're keeping a written record, that the answers were already there. It was already showing you this is what you need to do, or this is the path you need to go on, and this is what will happen or what could happen. I don't believe necessarily in, I'm trying to think of the right word here.
Fate?
See, and that's
or
the
like
thing.
a set future?
The fates are connected to the bees as well and to the weavers. So I do believe in a lot of aspects of that. But you're right. I don't necessarily believe that it's set in stone. That's probably how I should say it. I believe that because we have free will on this planet, that every path, every choice leads to a certain thread in your own personal web of your life. So how you get to the center of that web is completely up to you. It's depending on which thread you follow. And sometimes it can be a labyrinth. Sometimes it can feel like a box, like you're boxed in and you're not going anywhere. But usually, which is what I love about the labyrinth and the spiral, what those ancient symbols teach us is that when you descend and you go into this, you always have a way to come out. So embodied dream work is a practice that you do on your own. And that's kind of what we're talking about today, is embodied dream work. In my live classes, we do another practice that involves other people, that involves our sisters, and that's called dream mirroring. And what that is it's sharing a dream with the group, and then it's being reflected back to the dreamer by the other women who have tapped into their womb spaces. I guide people into their womb, and then we speak from the womb. That's the oracular part, where we speak from the womb, like the Melissa, like the Pythia, and we give our reflections on the dream. And it's not about interpreting the dream. It's about sharing whatever comes up, whether it's a feeling, a song, a fragment of a thought, or how we feel. So that aspect of dream work is very powerful, because that to me is where the hive begins to hum, because it takes different voices to create that hum, right? So I would say that when we're doing this type of dream work for embodied dream work, it's very powerful dreaming on your own. You can create your own reality because you can see the past, present, and future. But like I said, it's really dependent on whether or not you're paying attention and listening and writing it down, because you need something to be able to reference, right? A lot of the times, and I've done this myself, I think I'm going to remember a dream like weeks later, and I lose it. It slips away. And we talk about that a lot in my classes too, where how we can catch a dream if it starts slipping away. There's so many different techniques and practices that you can do, but really everything is about coming back to the body. The way that I dream is really somatic. It's really about the body. It's really about using the body as the portal, the womb. And when I say body, I'm referring specifically to the womb space. That's the focus, but we're using obviously our whole body, the whole physicality of ourselves. But I'm sorry, I don't even know if I'm answering your question. I feel like I'm rambling.
No, you're doing a great job. I'm loving that. Yeah, so we're using our physical bodies, the somatic, to help root us in this dreaming and kind of bring it into the real world. Is that a little bit what you're saying?
Yes. Yes. So I know it's like, how do we weave our oracles of the night with the oracles of the day? And the key, honestly, is to keep a dream journal. That's the only way you're going to understand the patterns, the synchronicities, the signs. Because, like I said, you might forget. You might think you'll remember and you won't. Like a year from now, I've looked at my dream journal from a year ago and discovered that dreams were leading me to certain moments. And I didn't even realize it at the time. I didn't think they were important. I didn't think there was a message there. But our dreams don't speak necessarily in human language. They speak in symbols. And when you start to learn that symbol, you start to learn your own symbols, then you can start to decode what dreams mean for you and what kind of dreams you have. You can start deciding whether your dream is just what I call a reflective dream, where you're just processing events of the day or processing a movie you watch or TV show. Or you have, the dream travel dreams where you're traveling astrally and you're seeing something before it happened. Or maybe you went into a past life. I've had a lot of dreams like that too. Or maybe your dream is just pure symbolism where it's just a message from an animal ally or an animal spirit or an animate spirit of the land or an animate spirit of the universe. It could be ancestors. It's just really learning your own dream language. And for me, I found I had 4 different types of dreams. When I really started dissecting my dream journal, I decided that I would start to categorize them so that I could understand and trace their arcs through time and where I was to where I am now. And I have to tell you, it is the most powerful form of weaving because you are literally dreaming for something, for a goal. Like you can dream for love. That's actually something that me and my husband are working on, is creating a self-paced online course, dreaming for more love in your life, whether you're single or whether you're already in a partnership, and doing dream incubation together with your partner, because that's also very powerful too. And you can dream, with the energy of love. If you're lacking love in your life, you can invite maybe Eros energy. I mean, Eros is the energy of the world. I mean, this love language, especially between the bees and the flowers itself. So there are so many different things and so many different ways to weave your realities. I wish I could get into them all with you, but I know that this is probably not enough time. It'll never be enough time. Even in my courses, 6 weeks, it's still never enough time. There's just so much constantly evolving from this practice. And we all bring such deep insights into this work. And a lot of the feedback I get from my courses, the part that the women really love is the dreaming part. It's dreaming together, dreaming collectively. We end up dreaming similar things. Like in my groups, it's amazing when I talk about dream weaving and weaving realities, we'll dream elements of the same thing. And it just becomes this powerful way of a divine messaging system. That's what the priestesses did. One of the core skills of the Melissa priestesses was dream weaving. And it was being able to go in together and dream about something to acquire a message about the past, the present, or the future. Or the collective unconscious, they would dream for the people as well. What do the people need to know? What do we need to know about the land, about society?
Hey friends, it's Julie. I'm just popping in here real quick to tell you about a very special invitation we have for you. If you have been feeling deeply called to learn more about your feminine identity or to see what feminine power really is, or you're just loving the podcast, then Kaylee and I would love to invite you to join our community, Feminine Alchemist. Inside, we host live monthly women's circles, challenges, and Wheel of the Year celebrations. They are seriously so much fun. We have monthly workshops where we bring in experts to teach on anything from menstruation to mythology. You'll also get access to our library of courses about astrology, intuition techniques, sacred embodiment, and cyclical living. And most importantly, you'll be able to connect with women who are like-hearted and walking the same path as you. So if this sounds exciting to you, join today by clicking the link in the show notes or going to femininealchemist.com. That's alchemist spelled M-Y-S-T. Okay, back to the episode. Oh, I love this. And I think that makes so much sense because as women, right, as the feminine is always a collective. It's always working together. We're always knitting our root systems together. That's why it's a web and weaving together. So I love this idea of weaving with other people and having your dreams reflected back to you. I think that's so powerful. I was thinking back to what we were saying before about catching your dreams. And I think what you were kind of alluding to was there's kind of a somatic way to catch your dreams if you start losing that. Do you mind elaborating on it? Oh,
Yeah.
just a little. You don't have to say the whole thing, but just a little bit of an elaboration on that.
Yes, of course. So a lot of the times when we begin to wake up, we're in this theta state, this hypnagogic state. It's the state between sleep and wake. It's what I call the in-between, the liminal space, the bees, the serpent. They are the guardians of these realms, that in-between. And it's my favorite space. It's probably the space where I receive the most messages, honestly, for my life. The most visuals, the most dreams, the most messages, the most profound ones where I'm able to kind of dream travel into the past, present, and future. And they're very important. So as soon as you start waking up where you're still kind of half asleep, that is the most important part. If you can train yourself to be present during that time, you can gain insight, divine insight and messages into your life and sometimes into the lives of others too, not in an exploitive or trespassing kind of way, obviously in a very respectful way. But one of the techniques that I have is to not move. Like if you put yourself in the position that you were in while dreaming, sometimes a dream will come back. I'll do that. Let's say I was sleeping on my side. And then as I started waking up, I moved and I turned to the other side. Sometimes I'll go back to the other side and it will come back. And then I'll start playing the dream through. I also use what's called sensory recapitulation in my classes. And it's something that I also learned from my mentor. And it's really amazing because you start using all your senses to recall the dream. But what you do first is you use them in waking life first, and you start practicing that way. By the end of your day, you're going through all your senses. You're trying to remember things throughout your day. And then you go to sleep and you try it again in the morning with your dreams. And the more you do that, and I've had a lot of feedback from past students that the more they did that, the more their dream recall returned. Like students and sisters, I like calling them sisters better. My sisters who couldn't remember their dreams for years. And then they started implementing these practices, getting into that sense 8 experience where you're using your body the same way animals do, the same way bees do, the same way serpents do, where we become so in tune with the world and what we're feeling, what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what we're tasting, that oh, I'm getting goosebumps. I'm getting chills. Sorry. That it all comes back to us. We get into the animal body, right? We become our animal self, where our intuition isn't necessarily mental. It is felt. It is visceral. It is very real. It goes beyond the intellect. And that's what we do. I mean, that's what we practice and I was going to say recapitulate, which is what it's called, because that's what we're doing. We're recapitulating it because we're trying to train ourselves during our day, during our waking hours, to bring that into the dream space so that when we wake up, we can remember our dreams more.
This is perfect. I love it. I love all these tools because I was going to say, I'm sure people will have questions. Well, I don't dream or I haven't dreamed. So this is a perfect tool for people who have a hard time dreaming, remembering their dreams, everything like that. I do want to bring up I know your time is so precious. I don't want to, overstep that, but I have to ask about dream interpretation. I don't think this would be like a dream work chat if we talked about interpretation. And I know you said you don't like dream dictionaries, but are there tools that you do like? And are there common symbols that we should know or ways that we can understand our dreams more easily?
That's a very good question. I feel like I keep reverting back to this, but your book of mirrors, your dream journal, because you'll start to understand what certain symbols mean for you. And then once you start doing that, you start to create your own dream dictionary. That's what I love about this work is that after doing this for so many years, I'm able to have my own dream dictionary where certain symbols I know mean certain things to me. So my mind will register that symbol if my subconscious wants to show me something, it'll use a certain symbol that it knows I will understand because it's given it to me over and over again. And you might find that maybe you've been dreaming of serpents for a very long time, but you were always scared of them. Okay, so are you afraid of your own power? Because serpents are initiators. If something bites you in a dream, in a lot of shamanic traditions and cultures, it actually means that you're taking in the power of that animal. So what is that? And what power is that animal providing you? Do you need to speak up more? Do you need to be more courageous like a lion if a lion bit you? Do you need to stay on your ground more? There's so many different messages. It's hard to put it all down to one little boxed category, which is why I don't really like dream interpretation books because they never really speak to me. It seems so generic where dream language is so personal. It's so personal. There's actually this book that came in, I think a month or two ago, and I wish I'd had it earlier because I could have used it for some content I was creating. But it's by Barbara Walker and it's called The Woman's Dictionary of Symbols and Sacred Objects. And it's so good. I'm going to show that to you right there. It's probably mirrored. But what I like about this is that I will go in and I almost use it kind of as a dream dictionary now. Not really, but if I dream about a certain object or symbol, I dream of symbols sometimes that I've never seen before. And I'm wondering, do they exist? And it's hard to try to put it into Google and try to, how do you describe a symbol? It can be hard sometimes. So this has pictures too. So sometimes I'll go in and if I find it, I'll think, oh my God, okay, I have my answer. So this book is really good. It was, I think, from the 80s. So I don't know how updated it is, but it's got a lot of knowledge. It's about 600 pages. I kind of use it as, I don't know, I guess kind of like my Bible a little bit, my women's Bible, but it's just been really good to add an extra layer. I think I really want to emphasize that it doesn't assign a meaning for me, but it adds an extra layer. So then I can go in and dissect it a little bit more and understand what it means to me. Because a lot of the times, like I said, dreams might not make sense. Their meaning might not actually make sense. Sometimes they can be very literal and they could show you something. I've dreamt of, past lovers, their partners being pregnant. And I find out, oh, I knew before they even posted it on social media. Why do I know that? I don't know why that matters to me, but somehow I dreamt about it, right? Because there's always a connection to people that we've crossed paths with. And sometimes we have soul connections with people and we have past lives with people. So there's always this connection there, this thread in the dream weave that you can tap into, even unconsciously without meaning to. And you can see how people are doing without actually talking to them in waking reality. That's happened to me a lot where I will dream about someone that I haven't spoken to in years, but I'll already know what's going on in their life. And I know they're doing okay. And I just leave it at that. I don't need to message them. I don't need to bring it into waking reality. It's just there for me to know and to keep to myself. I don't really go and tell anybody that I'm dreaming about that. Usually when I do, people get a little worried because I'll dream things. They think, how do you know that? Sorry, I don't know. It just happened.
I really, really, really love that. And I love the confidence that you have and have grown in your dreams. And this reality, like you said in the beginning, we are always told, dreams are silly, they don't really mean anything. They're just subconscious junk. They're only you processing. But I love that confidence that you bring to it. And I love this interpretation. I need that book because I actually have been on a big journey gathering as many feminine symbols as possible. I'm up to 65. I mean, divine feminine symbols. Yeah, I'm up to over 65 now, which is amazing. But I'm sure she probably has some that I don't. But I really relate to symbols are so important to us. And learning about symbols can help you interpret your dreams and help you in your daily life to see the synchronicities. As I've been going on this journey, I've seen that more and more. The more that I search out and I learn these symbols, the more that I understand my own life and what's happening and the more messages that can come through to me. And for people who don't understand, I think because we're in the masculine world, symbols are not very useful. I mean, they have their uses. Like a sign, a stop sign can be a symbol and that can be useful, but we don't really attune to symbols the same way that we used to, and in the very feminine way. And I just want to put a plug in there for people listening that the reason that symbols are so helpful, exactly like you pointed out, is one, they're layered. So you can always come back to them and learn more and more and more. But two, because they're tangible. There's something tangible you can look at and feel and understand and embody. And those pieces just help understanding to grow so much more than just like reading something, listening to something. It's so much more than your mind, which is so the feminine. I love that you brought this up, is the body, right? That physicality is such a feminine piece of it. And I love seeing these dreams as coming up and being that physical reality and coming into your physical reality and dreaming from that physical space. So that is so, so, so beautiful. And I'm so grateful for everything that you have shared with us today. I could talk to you forever and ever about this, but I would love to know, is there, where can people find you? First of all, where can people find you? How can they connect with you? What are you working on now? Everybody, I'm sure after listening to this is like, I need to go find Stella. I need to learn all her stuff. So how can they connect with you?
I just wanted to comment really quickly what you said was so beautiful, because symbols really were the earliest form of communication for humans, right? We look at cave paintings and pictographs and even hieroglyphs, and so many cuneiform languages were symbols. So thank you for pointing that out. It's very true. You can find me at www.honeywomb.com, as well as on Instagram at stella.porta. And as for my current dream work offerings, classes, and courses, we just wrapped up Dreaming with the Hive, and that was at the beginning of March. And now we are going to be stepping into the Spiral of Wings and Scales, Dreaming with the Bee and the Serpent. We begin May 4th, 2025, and they run on Sundays for 3 hours. I actually increased the amount of time. It was 2 hours for my last course, but I kept going over because I over deliver. I'm the type of person where I just give so much value and I just keep giving so much information because I love helping people and I love sharing. So, like you said, I could be talking to you for hours too. It's just, there's so much to talk about. And I love helping people with dreams and helping people become their own oracle again and bring back their own sovereignty and to trust themselves. That's really, really something that I really want to put out into the world, is to tap into your own ancient priestess lineages, because we're all connected through them, through these lineages of the Great Mother. And so we have that course that's coming up, but I also, because of popular demand, have created a 75-minute workshop to get you started with Dreaming with the Bees tonight. So it's pretty jam-packed as well, full of value. I also included bonus resources, and one of them is the exact dreaming tree meditation that I use in my live courses. So it's just to give people a little bit of a taste if they're not ready to fully commit to a live course. I know people's lives are really busy and everyone has a lot going on. So this helps you get you started. And then when you're ready and when it's aligned, you can join one of the live courses and do the dream mirroring aspect, which is so powerful with your sisters, dream weaving with other women. And I have to say too, a really powerful aspect of the live courses is healing the wounds of sisterhood. That was one of the main feedbacks I also received. And it's in the testimonials. You can see them all and watch them and read them on my website and on my web pages. But it's that healing of sisterhood, coming together, exactly like you said, Julie, remembering a time when women were just together. We were in circles so much more, and we were weaving together, literally textiles, and we were singing together, and we were creating magic together. We were drawing down the moon together. We were doing all these things as a sisterhood. And it really just brings that back. Even though we are, most of us, kilometers or miles apart from each other, we're dreaming together. And that is where the hive really begins to hum. That is it right there. Because a single bee cannot survive on her own. She needs the hive. She needs her sisters. So that's what we're coming back to. That's what the bees teach us. And I made this workshop really affordable too, as well. And it's all self-paced. So literally in an afternoon, that night, you can begin dreaming with the bees on your own. And I also have, I know I mentioned Julie already, was the Women Who Dream with Wolves, rewilding the feminine through myth and dreams. And that will be happening during the season of the witch, the Scorpio season, the fall. Also, during the Hunter's Moon, it actually aligned with so many cosmic alignments that it was just perfect timing. And that I'm really looking forward to, because I researched this after it was dropped into my awareness, after I started dreaming about the wolves wanting to come in more and more as guardians, because they're also linked to the underworld, just like the bees and just like the serpent. And actually, they're also linked to two of the bee goddesses. I'm not going to talk about them. I'll save that for later, but they're actually really connected to bees as well. You wouldn't think at all, but they are. And once they started to come in, I did research and I couldn't find anything like this. So I can actually say this is the first of its kind anywhere, I think globally, maybe. So I'm very, very excited for that. And yeah, I'm just really excited. These courses are just so powerful. And if you want to experience their medicine yourself, definitely go check out the testimonials, because it's not just me trying to sell you on anything. This is real experiences from real people. And when you dream weave together in real time, it just transcends time and space. We remember a time where women were the land. And that's what we're trying to come back to.
Oh, I love it. Oh, so much juicy goodness. So much beautiful wisdom right here. I love this idea. Women were the land. We're coming back to being the land. Well, thank you so much, Stella, for being with us. It has been just such a pleasure. I will be dreaming with the bees tonight. I will be working on this, and I hope everybody else will too. Please, please, please go check out Stella's stuff. It is really amazing. There's so much value there. I always get her emails and I always read them. And actually, some of her free material about symbols was really helpful on my journey to add symbols to what I'm looking for. So that's a great place to start. And so I just urge you to go check her out. I hope everyone has a great week. And thank you so much for being with us. And we'll see you next week on Feminine Alchemy.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week.